anybody tell me what we've been working on for the past couple weeks to refresh our memories? Heather.
Two-step equations.
All right, so the first question that we're going to be looking at is number 1 from your homework assignment, which was 3x plus 4 equals 16. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to look over your notes, and then I'm going to ask for some volunteers to see if anybody can come up and show your classmates on the board. All right, how are we doing over here?
Well, I'm a little confused on the last couple of steps.
Okay, yeah, I do see, we have missed a step here, but we're gonna wait until we join together again as a class and go over it, because some people might have the same question. So hold that question, all right? And let me know if you have anything to say after. Okay, so we're gonna come back together now, and do we have any volunteers to come up on the board? Camille, come on up. And while you're doing it, will you please explain every step that you're taking to the class?
Okay, so first you see that 4 is added to 3x, so you subtract 4 from both sides, and you get 3x equals 12. And then you see that 3 is multiplied by x, so you have to divide by 3 on both sides, and then x equals 4.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for showing your work. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go over everything that Camille just explained. So every time we're working on a two-step equation, we want to ask ourselves 2 questions. So the first one is, what is the goal of this equation? So for us, our goal is to isolate this variable, right? And then the next thing we want to ask ourselves in order to achieve that goal is say, what is happening to that variable, right? So then once we know what's happening to that variable, we know that we want to do, does anybody know what we want to do to that variable? Heather?
Opposite reciprocal, you want to isolate it.
Okay, so exactly, that was an awesome answer. So what we're doing here is, since we're adding 4, we're gonna do the opposite and add a -4. We know that we have to add the opposite on both sides of the equation because we have an equal sign here, right? So we know that what we do on one side of the equation, we have to do on the other. So then we're left with 3x equals 12, right? And then again, we ask ourselves, what is the goal? Our goal is to isolate this variable, and what is happening to that variable? So can anybody tell me what's happening to that variable? Camille?
It's being multiplied by 3.
Okay, so if it's being multiplied by 3, and Heather already told us that we have to do the opposite reciprocal, so we're gonna do a division by 3, right? So then we still have the equal sign, so what we do on one side, we have to do on the other, and then we're left with x equals 4. So now I'm gonna ask everybody how we're feeling. So we're gonna have a thumbs up, say I got it, I can do it by myself. I'm a little bit shaky, and I have no idea what's going on. Okay, Jenna, do you have any questions?
Why do you subtract before dividing?
Okay, so we're going to subtract before dividing because it all comes down to asking ourselves that important question in what is our goal here, right? Our goal is to isolate that variable, so the first thing that we have to do is get it so that this x is on one side of the equation. Okay, so we finished our first equation of the homework, and it seems like everybody seems to get this down. If you still have any questions, you can see me at the end of class, and I'd be happy to help. So now we're going to move to number 2 on your homework sheet, and this one we seem to have a little bit more trouble with, so we're going to take some time and go through these steps one by one. So we're going to go back to our 2 essential questions, right? Can anybody remind me what those 2 questions are? Yes, Camille?
What is the goal, and what is happening to the variable?
Okay, so we're gonna keep that same mindset even when we have an equation that looks a little bit more complicated, right? So what we're gonna do is, what is our goal?
To get x by itself.
To get x by itself, right? So right now, what is happening to the x? Yes.
Being divided by 5 and having 2 subtracted from it.
Okay, so you said that it's being divided by 5 first, right? So what should we do?
You
In order
should
to-
opposite reciprocal, so you should multiply both sides by 5.
Okay, so we're going to multiply both sides by 5. Still, we have our equal sign, so we're going to say times 5. And then what happens here? Can anybody tell me? Camille?
You get x minus 2 equals 10.
All right, and just so everybody sees how we got that, so when we multiply by the 5, this is a 5 over 1. So when we multiply our fractions, we know how to do this, right? we're gonna cancel out the 5s on both sides. And then here, we're just doing a simple math equation, 2 times 5, which is 10, right? And now this looks a lot simpler than it does up here, right? So we just say, what's happening? 2 is being subtracted from this x, right? So what are we gonna do?
Add 2.
We're gonna add the opposite. So we're gonna do plus 2, just like that,
No.
Okay, add on the other side.
on both sides, good. And then we're gonna say x, these 2 are gonna cancel out, and x is gonna equal 12, right? So we have our answer here. So again, we're gonna take a little vote. Can everybody show me how they're feeling? Good? Okay, awesome. So great work going over the homework. I know that this is some challenging stuff that we're getting into, but it really is so important to understand this for math for the rest of your schooling. So we're gonna keep working on it, and I promise, we're gonna get better at it, and we're gonna nail it. But as we work on it, I'm gonna continue walking around, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I'm always here, so we're gonna get going with the rest of our day.